Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. State Representative Dan Ugaste, 65th District, covering portions of Kane and McHenry County. I am joined today by my colleagues, Representative Mark Batinick of the 97th District, Avery Bourne of the 93rd District, and Norine Hammond of the 95th District. Today I'm here to talk about the ongoing state of emergency in Illinois as so declared by the governor, the overreach of executive power, and the protection of our representative democracy. Emergency is defined in the dictionary as an unforeseen combination of circumstances or resulting state that calls for immediate action. It's also defined as an urgent need for assistance or relief. For the last 20 months, we have had one person rule our state, operating under a continual emergency declaration. In fact, to date, he's made 91 such orders. That's 91 times that constituents, business owners, and families and the entire legislative body have been silenced. The governor has relied on what has been deemed ambiguous legislation or an ambiguous section of the Illinois Emergency Management Act to issue continuous emergency declarations and exercise authority he otherwise would not possess. I have filed legislation to address this problem. It would ensure the legislature is involved in determining how our state is run. My House Bill 843 would guarantee executive power is kept in check and that the legislature is not denied its role in governing the state. It's important that as members of the legislature, we are able to act on the concerns of the people in our district, in governing at all times, and only in the most extreme circumstances should the executive authority be allowed to, or the executive be allowed to act alone. As lawmakers, we have a job to do, and that is to be the voice for our constituents so that they believe that their views are represented. How the current health situation has been handled is not how our system of government was intended to operate, nor as our system of checks and balances has been meant to function. By the continual rule of executive order, the people have had no voice. Ladies and gentlemen, our citizens have gone to war so that the people could have a voice. Good men and women have died. Our own state government should not ignore this fact. I have made several public and private requests for this bill to be heard. In fact, this goes back to the spring of 2020 when I first started asking our legislative leaders to bring us back so we could address this situation, this healthcare crisis, with the governor and have input as into how the state would address it. It was ignored. It's also not the first time I filed a bill on this issue. House Bill 5790 was filed in the 101st General Assembly, and it would have put, just like this bill, an immediate end to continuing declarations of emergency power for the same emergency beyond 30 days. We need legislative input in these matters, and yet it was not allowed a hearing. Despite my best efforts, the Democrats have still not signed on to this and have not allowed me a hearing. These actions, or the lack of actions as the case may be, that of the governor and the majority party has denied a co-equal branch of government and the people their voice to be heard in this state. I ask, what is it going to take before they join me in protecting our system of government? Now I'd like to turn it over to Representative Mark Batinick.
Thank you, Dan. Mark Batinick, 97th District, Plainfield area. I wanted to start by just giving everyone a little bit of an idea of where I've come from on this entire issue. 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago, just about right this moment, I did a radio show. I decided to buy radio time to talk about some more of the nuances of the issues facing us, COVID and many other things. And I bought a radio show to talk about the importance of vaccinating people who are pregnant, which I can tell you was kind of shocking for the base to hear. But I tell that story just to let you know that in terms of following science and data and what's important, no matter where that leads us, I think that's where we need to go, and we need to do it in an open matter. I'd like to anonymously quote one of my Democratic colleagues who said, We may all come to the same conclusion, but we need to do this publicly and transparently. And clearly we haven't done that yet. So we're not here today to call for any very specific changes to any way we've gone down this path. We just want to do it publicly, the path that we choose on a moving forward basis. And it's really a process argument. We can't accept a process simply because we like an outcome. That outcome might change. You look at other states. I don't think the governor should have the authority to do nearly 2 years of 30-day emergency orders and do all these rules and mandates any more than I think Governor DeSantis in Florida should be doing, mandates saying that you can't add the layer of protection of masks at the local level, right? That's not the way it's meant to be done. We're meant to have a legislative input for a reason. It's also a matter of trust a little bit. I think you're seeing a lack of trust in government. I think it's pretty fair to say there's a big lack of trust from many in our many of our citizens because of the lack of transparency. You have elected officials that maybe take statistics and data out of context pretty significantly. And if we were to have a more open and transparent process, I think you'd probably have more compliance with what we're doing and more trust. In my most recent letter to the governor, in my original discussions with the governor, I always said we need to have public buy-in. The things need to make sense to people. And right now I feel like we're losing the public buy-in on the pandemic and how to move forward. And I just want to highlight a couple of reasons why the discussion is important to do it publicly. My wife is an SRT, which is a student resource teacher, which is special ed. She's basically middle management at a school for special ed, K through 5. And, she was just telling me a situation of an autistic kid that may not be able to stay in school because having trouble with wearing the mask. I'm not sure that's in the best interest of our society for that kid to have to comply with a mask mandate that they're having a really hard time complying with. There's nuances to this. The World Health Organization looks at it differently than the CDC looks at it. When you go back in time to when we closed schools, I think many of us are going to look back and say that might not have been the right decision to have so many schools closed. There's a huge difference in life expectancy based on income. If you Google this, you'll find out that the highest 1% and lowest 1%, there's about a 10-year life expectancy difference for women, 15-year life expectancy difference for men based on income gap. The kids that didn't have the ability to stay in school, especially the ones that don't have two-parent homes, middle income, access to tutors, all that, you're going to see long-term effects on their income, which affects their life expectancy, which ultimately is what this is supposed to be about. So I get a little tired about listening to the experts when we're not having a situation when we're listening to all the experts. We're not listening to special ed teachers. We're not listening to sociologists talk about income gaps. We're not listening to people to talk about potential increase in violence. I know in our local school districts, we're just having a lot of difficulty with the kids being in control because they've been out of school so long. So there's a lot of nuance to this. There's a lot of public debate that needs to be happening that isn't happening. And probably one of the biggest issues that I get asked in my district office is about a mandate for kids to go to school, vaccine mandate for kids to go to school. And I'm not here to answer whether or not we should be doing that or not. But my question to you that I'd like to see asked of the governor is, does the governor think he has the authority to mandate a vaccine for school kids without public input, without the legislature? And I haven't seen anybody ask that question. That's what this is really all about. We're looking to be a co-equal branch of government and manage this best we can, because I think we can bring a lot of different viewpoints to the table. Once again, it needs to be done publicly and transparently. And with that, I will turn it over to Representative Avery Bourne.
Thank you, Mark. Avery Bourne, State Representative of the 95th Legislative District. I represent Christian, Montgomery, Macoupin, and Madison counties. Today we're up here to talk about an issue that I think we all hear about from our constituents, but also I hope that the Democrats in the legislature are hearing from their constituents as well, which is reining in the executive authority of Governor Pritzker. Oh, and by the way, also every future governor. This is an issue of good government. So we're here today to obviously push for Representative Ugaste's House Bill 843, but also to talk about the failures of the House and Senate Democrats in holding the governor accountable over the last 20 months. Every time that we bring this up and we say we need to pass a bill like this, which will rein in the current and future governors, they bring up what they call the Restore Illinois Collaborative Commission, which they made with bipartisan lawmakers that was supposed to work in tandem with the governor throughout his pandemic response. We have yet to see any kind of teeth to that commission. They haven't introduced legislation. They haven't held any hearings in person. They haven't come up with any real restraints on the governor's authority, and we haven't seen any real reports from them, which is one of the reasons we oppose the continuation of that commission. We don't need a Restore Illinois Collaborative Commission. We need to restore a co-equal branch of government's authority, which is the legislature. We are having in-person hearings today. I just came from one and came from another one. We can do this as a legislature to hold the governor's staff accountable, the agencies. We've had issues, everything from, of course, IDES and unemployment to ISP and FOID, right? We have seen many, many agencies that need to be held accountable along with the governor's continually issuing these executive orders. This bill is a small step to rein in the executive authority of Governor Pritzker. This is a super common sense thing. We could go even further and ask for even more audits and hearings. This is a first step that makes a lot of sense. I'm hopeful we can find a bipartisan group to support it because they are certainly hearing it from their constituents just as we all are hearing it from our constituents. Their vote for us was to be lawmakers. They did not vote for Governor Pritzker to run this state by executive order. Thank you for bringing this bill forward. It's a really important first step, and I'm hopeful that as we are here in the legislature for the next 2 weeks, we're able to talk about reining in the governor's executive authority. With that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Norine Hammond.
Thank you, Avery. I'm Norine Hammond. I represent the 93rd District. All are part of 8 counties in west central Illinois. And as elected members, as we stand here before you as elected members of the Illinois General Assembly, together with all of our colleagues, we are responsible for representing our constituents and voting on policy matters that are important to them. And that includes the state's COVID-19 response. Governor Pritzker has issued an extended disaster declaration since the beginning of this pandemic with little to no input from legislators. The governor has issued a total of 91 executive orders. This represents the condensed version of those 91 executive orders since 2020 and 2021. Everything from the initial stay-at-home to regional mitigations and masks and vaccine mandates. The Democratic majority in the General Assembly has abdicated the responsibility to serve as a co-equal branch of our government and has ceded that authority to Governor Pritzker again and again. I'm here today to assert that the General Assembly's authority and responsibility to debate and enact critically important legislation during these times is now. And it has passed, and we continue it today, but now is the time to act and right the wrongs that have been done to this point. We have to have an open and honest discussion, as my colleagues have said, about what we've done with this COVID response and any further mitigations or restrictions. That would begin by calling Representative Ugaste's House Bill 843 for a vote by all 118 members in the House.